Power BI is the embedded Power BI into Intuiflow. This is something that Dan introduced when he was up here last year, Dan Holton. And in the past year, we have made tremendous improvements all across the board in the Power BI. And there's so much to show, but I'm going to have to narrow that down to just some of the items that you can really look at to get your supply chain fired up. It just, you know, in Intuiflow, we like to look at exceptions. We like to look at those as opposed to having you look at all thousands of your SKUs. You know, what are the ones that I can really take an action on and make some improvements? So today I'm going to talk a little bit about targets, and then we're going to talk about some KPIs, you know, things that you might want to focus on, whether that's inventory levels, turns, and if it's in that section, maybe we'll want to see buffer trend charts and current and target inventory, supply, order conformance, MOQs. Then we'll take a look at some reports related more on the service level side. So we'll see our back orders, our past period analysis, qualified demand, and duration per planning status. Now that's only the kind of the tip of what is in Intuiflow. I had a really hard time setting up for this presentation, like what to include. You know, it's like I've got 30 minutes and we have so many things that you can look at. When you go into the report section, you will see the predefined Power BI reports now. And we have, you know, you might look at it and go, that's all you got? But within each one of these sections, there's pages and pages, and then you go to a page, and then there's, you know, screen after screen after screen. So there is a lot in there. So the question comes up, what are we measuring? Okay, so if you want to go in and try to adjust and make your supply chain, just fine tune it quite a bit, you know, so what is it that I want to measure? And I know if you've done an implementation with us, you've probably seen within the first couple of weeks, we'll sit you down and we'll say, okay, we're going to fill out this project charter. Okay, and we have this big graph and we're saying, okay, you know, what are your real pain points? And everybody's got those. Everybody knows their pain points. And then we'll come back and we'll say, great, what are items that might get in the way of this implementation? Other projects that you're working on. Everybody knows that. You know, everybody knows what they want to get out of it. And then we get to this one box. It says KPIs. And sometimes in supply chain, there's a little bit of crickets because maybe your company's like, just grow revenue 20% this year, 10%, whatever. But what is it that you can do to help achieve those goals? And sometimes in supply chain, you're just hearing crazy things like reduce inventory by 20%. Okay, well, you know, I'm stocked out of the stuff I'm selling and I've got a lot of stuff that's not selling. What do I do? So hopefully with this, we can give you some insights into good places to go in and make quick checks, look at the outliers, the items that are causing most of your problems. Okay, so starting with inventory turnover and investment KPIs. When you open up your historical performance reports, this is usually the first chart that you're going to see. And I'm showing you the first 4 charts, but below it, there's another 6. So there's plenty more when you scroll down. But when I come to this chart, this is like the first place I want to look at. I want to look at targets. You know, what am I aiming towards? Okay, and at the top, you have options here. You can see right here, you can set your date range. You can say, okay, I need to look at the last 3 months, or maybe I want to look at the last 6 weeks. Maybe I want to look at the last year, but you can set your date range, and then all of your information will come to that range. Also, you can set your period. How do I want to view these buckets? I'll have, you know, a column, you know, for each period, but do I want to see that in days, or do I want to see that in weeks or months, so on? So you have the option to check, to select those. And when you do, then you'll see your averages up at the top. looking back over that date range. So you'll have current inventory, target, non-buffered inventory value over top of grain shortages with demand. And then what is my average count of items? You know, quickly, I can see my average count of items in red, yellow, green, and blue. And then the charts, the first 4 charts that you see, I want to talk about those really quick. So you've got your count of items per planning priority. All right, so then you can see 100% of your buffered items and what priority they are in. Are they in red? Have they been in yellow or green? What is my trend? Am I getting more in the green or am I getting more in the red? You know, this is going to tell me, you know, if my items, if I'm having more in a red planning priority, why are these not getting ordered? All right, hover over any of the sections, and for that date, you will get the count of items. Current and target inventory value. So this right here will show you always your kind of your bimodal graph here. You remember that from DDMRP training. So we've got, you know, at the bottom, we've got our red that's not enough. We move up to our green. This is where we want to be. And then move back up to the high red. That's too much. So this is tracking your inventory. You've got your current inventory that's in the black. You've got your target in the red. Are you getting closer to that target? Or are you getting further away? So current inventory value, why am I kind of living in the too much area? Hover over any of these sections, you'll get the daily detail data. And the count of items per execution status. This is your alerts. So what's happening with my alerts? Are my alerts, am I getting more in the high red and the critical? What would be causing that, you know? I need to check on my timing and why stuff isn't in. Hover over that, you'll get the count per area. And then shortages with demand. This is another chart that is showing, hey, these are items that I'm going to have having a stock out on by day, but how many of these also had demand? The blue line is the percent, and the red columns, these are the actual count. Also, your non-buffered inventory. This is something to look at. If you're having big changes in your non-buffered inventory, why is that? I mean, you know, we want to net out to 0 here. So what would cause big growth in your non-buffered? This is, you know, do you have stuff that you've recently unbuffered? Do you have a constraint and suddenly you've got a big stockpile of components and, you know, missing one part and you have a buildup of supply? Or I think I heard someone last night talking about, you know, you had to buy ahead for some reason, and now you have tremendous amounts of inventory just sitting around waiting for you to be able to build. So after that, I would like to jump into current and target inventory. This sheet is in your current model. It's the top sheet there, and it will show you your target inventory and today's inventory. It'll show you what the variance is. Now, one thing I want to point out is you can choose your unit. You can choose to look at this by value, by your stock days, by your quantity. All right. So sometimes people, it shows up in quantity and they're like, whoa, and they're thinking it's in value. So if your numbers seem a little bit off, be sure to check your unit there. And you can look at the variance. You can say, okay, current inventory is 87.5. My target is 328. Why is my variance off so much? Why am I so low? And the good thing is with the variance, you can then just attack these items. These are the ones that are causing your biggest problem. Take care of those and a lot of your problem goes away. Then you just click on the header here, sort the variance the other way. So you'll get the negative variance, okay? So those are the items that you have a lot more inventory than the target. So take a look at those, get rid of the biggest factors there, and you'll see some big changes. Another thing I want to point out is up at the top, you can group these items. You know, you can group them by your planner code, by your location, by a material type, and that way you can see your variance by group. This is set by material type, and so each group, you can see exactly where most of your problems are. We've been in several situations where you put it by material type and you find, oh, it's just one material type I need to look at, and go grab those parts. Supply orders. It's another area that we want to look at for inventory. When you open up your supply orders, you're going to see it ordered by promise date. Okay, so you look back at your furthest promise date and say, okay, so why haven't we seen this? You know, where is this? You know, maybe you're having an issue with a supplier, or maybe something didn't get closed out that should have gotten closed out. But you want to just keep your supply orders up to date. Sometimes you have a supply order that's been open, or it's sitting there saying 2022, 2021. Well, you know, it looks like it's on order. It looks like it's coming into the system. And so without cleaning up that, you won't get the signal to order. I want to take a second and talk about the filters, because on Power BI pages, almost all of them, you have this set of filters. Some of these views, just so that I can get the screen bigger, I've got the filters collapsed so you don't see them. But right here, you have these filters. And so you can take whatever page you're looking at, and you can get down to a much more granular level. You can use, right here, I'm just using location, and supply order quantity is greater than 0. But you can look at it by your inventory method or your planning, your material types. You can look at specific part numbers. And so you have a lot of options on the filters. Also, if you want to use some of your own fields, right up at the top, we have your user-defined fields. So if you already have that UDF with a name in it, you'll see it here, but the rest of them, just whatever user-defined fields you have, and you also can go over to get the rest of them. So you have a lot of options to filter your pages. Excess supply. Well, we were just looking at supply. Now we're looking at excess. This is an important page because this is showing you items where you have excess on hand and you have open supply orders. So right here in your excess supply value, having that sorted, you see which items that you could take action against to maybe reduce these orders, or do you really need them? Or is there something that Intuiflow doesn't know about that you just got information on, and somebody threw in an order that hadn't made, that we don't have the information for? But these are good areas that you can attack to do some cleanup. When you highlight one of those excess supply lines, then at the bottom, you'll get the information, including the order number for everything that makes up the top line. So then you have, direct item order numbers that you need to take a look at. Okay, exported orders. This is the order conformance. Eric talked yesterday about being able to go to your data exports page, and you could download all of your committed orders, right? And he said that's a way that you can look at, what was recommended and what was really ordered. And Russell's presentation yesterday, he was mentioning making it an important part of your process to check on your order conformance. Okay. Well, with this page, you can go in and you can look by planner code. You can sort on any of these fields, 100% respected, ordered more, or ordered less. So you can see if somebody in your supply chain hired Russell's employee that likes to use a 3-factor on everything, you can find it right here. But really what you can find right here, it's not really such a gotcha type thing. It's much more of a talk to somebody and they say, oh yeah, well, this item's got a lot of variability and I just can't seem to keep enough on hand. And so then that's an opportunity to go back and look at that buffer. Is it set right? Do you need to increase your spike threshold or horizon? You know, something like that. So that's a really good opportunity to talk with your buyers and see what's going on. It could be a learning thing. It could be some real issues with an item that need to be fixed. You can also sort by part number. Find the part numbers that were ordered the least. Why were they ordered the least? What's going on with those? There's some reason. Do you have a limit? Does your supplier have a constraint? Or what's the reason you're recommending something and not ordering near enough? This chart, this kind of looks at your order conformance over your time period. So you've got your time period and you're looking, hey, green, we're ordering 100% conformance every day. This is looking great. We have just a couple of areas, a little bit of over ordering right here. Let me click on that particular line. The details for that line will just all show up right here. The red line, oh, we didn't order near enough that day. What happened? You can click on that one red line. You'll see exactly the orders, who placed them, and the quantities that were recommended, and the quantities that were actually ordered. You can also take just the variance down at the bottom, and you can see the things where there was a recommended quantity of 0, and we placed orders. You can look at it like that. So there's a lot of ways to look at your conformance, but I think this is a really good place to jump in just to make sure how people are using the system. And then the MOQ analysis. You can jump in here and you can order by your minimum days to find what items it is that you're having to order hundreds of days worth of supply. Okay. Now, sometimes you have some huge MOQ and it's not really a big deal. Maybe it's, maybe I've got 300 days of it, but it's a tiny screw. It doesn't take up any room and it was cheap. And maybe that is fine. But on the other hand, you might have items that are a little bit more expensive and you're ordering hundreds of days worth. And then that's cash flow that you don't have. So you can use this sheet to find areas where you're placing big orders and holding them for a long time, and maybe you can renegotiate that. All right. So before I jump into the service level, I'll stop a second and see if I've got any questions on the items we've gone over so far.
On the chart that had the excess supply orders, is that based off of top of green or target inventory or something else?
The excess is going to be off of your target.
Okay.
Over the horizon that you have set. Oh wait, that's a current report. That's going to be based on your target today.
Just like you have an expected average inventory based on all of red plus half of green, you also can infer an expected average open supply. If you know your green zone size, let's say you have a green zone of 1,000 units and you have a 10-day lead time, right? ADU of 10 or something like that. It'll figure out how many open supply orders you should have in the green zone, depending on your MOQ and what your green zone sizing has been, right? And from that, we can infer what the target open supply should be. And that would be, if you're above that, that says you've got excess open supply. It looks at the addition of the inventory plus the open supply and helps you see when you've got too much open supply. There's times when the issue's in inventory. There's times when the issue's in open supply. There's times when it's a combination of both. So we were doing analysis like this at Aptiv in the early days of their rollout. And it was kind of interesting to see how much of the weight of the open supply was because of excess ordering. You know, Russell put a lot of comments yesterday about order compliance and getting people to follow the system's recommendation. You know, if it's not giving you the right recommendations, adjust the buffer settings so that you can let the system do the work for you. And that's the concept behind that report. Okay, make sense? Other questions? Yes, sir.
So relative to the initial report that you're showing there, I think it was current on hand. Are you able to go back and reference specific snapshots in time historically to be able to see your data and performance at that said date?
So you can see with the cursor, you can place your cursor on the date and be able to see your values in each of the categories, each of the priorities, or your target inventory, what it was on a certain date, what your on-hand inventory was on a certain date.
Yeah.
Yep, you can just place your cursor on the line.
And is there any limitation on that?
We go back. Yeah, I think typically we're looking back a full year. I think in some of the cases, I don't know if any engineers know the answer, but I think we were truncating the history at a year or something like that. And if we need to extend that, we can do that. That's not a big lift. Okay. All right, Kelli.
All right. Before I jump into some of the service level KPIs, I want to mention that the embedded Power BI also will let you edit reports. So if you're a Power BI, fan and you want to go in, you can hit the edit and you can make some changes. You can pull in different fields that you might need. You can set bookmarks and you can save these reports and they'll show up in your custom Power BI report section. And then you can reference those reports. That way you don't have to go back and refilter every single time. You can just go to that report and see it weekly, daily, monthly, however often you need to do it. If you want to do, we don't have let's create brand new reports in the PBI, but you can use APIs or OData to export the data. And then you can build Power BI reports like on your desktop app or something like that. All right, so back orders. When you go to the back orders report, you have both demand and supply. We were just looking at supply, the supply orders and orders with over top of green, but you have a different view here of supply. But looking at the demand, the questions are, why are we having all this demand that's late? And you can set your tolerance days for what you want to look at. Maybe you only want to look at, anything that is 10 days or more late or 30 days or more. You have the slider that you can use to choose. Right now, I've got 120 to infinity, this is the latest of the late, right? So why is it late? Is it right here? I've selected September and I get all of the specific orders and the days late. But why is it late? Is it not closed out? Is it, is it something, is it real demand? I mean, why is it this late? So just by inspecting these top items, you get rid of a lot of your issues, and it could be an error. Also, if you have demand that's not closed out, then you're probably way over ordering. Looking at your past period analysis, this will show you your shortages. You can come in here to see which items do I really need to focus on, which items am I having like a very low service rate on that actually have demand. So right here, shortage days. I've got this, all these items I had 89 days of shortage. So it's 89 days of stock out, but right here in the demand pulses, how many days of demand did I have? So using this chart, you can see really I'm stocked out and these are the items I had the most demand on. When you select anything up at the top, you'll have a chart for it down at the bottom. But these would be your items to focus on. It's a little blown up version of this, but you can sort it on service level. What's the lowest service level items? So you can see it in that view too. Average daily qualified demand. This is another chart I would look on. It is in that first chart with all the charts, with your buffer trend section, you'll find your average daily qualified demand. What we're looking here is your qualified demand versus your EDU. So are you getting, if your qualified demand is like always above that EDU, that might be a sign that you've got some back orders going on. Here, with this up and down, what is the problem here? You might have some spiky demand and you might not be able to handle it all. So maybe you need to go back and look at that, your spike horizon and your how far, how many lead times ahead you're looking for your spike, okay? So you would look at that. Also, if your qualified demand is always way below your EDU, then that's a sign to you, maybe you should check out your EDU or your daily usage method. Because if it's always, if your qualified demand is not, if it's below, then maybe you have a forecast. Your EDU is set by forecast or a blend, and maybe you have a big difference between your EDU and your forecast. If that's happening and you're planning to a blend or you're planning to a forecast, then you can easily get way off and easily be like planning to bring in more and more every day than what you're actually using. I don't have it listed in here, but we have an EDU FDU report in here too. So that's a good report to go in and look at your variance between your EDU and your FDU and see where your EDU is lying. And duration per planning status. This is another great report because you can look at, whoops, a little bit further. You can look at duration per planning status by zone. What is the average duration of your items in your green zone or in your red zone or in your yellow zone? So right here we've selected the red zone, and if I've got everything for my last 3 months, if I've got all these items that are been in the red zone for 89, 90 days, that's a big problem. So why are these not getting ordered? But you can look at it per zone. You can look in your yellow zone. Is something lingering in here for a month before it's getting ordered? And you can be able to tell, hey, why are we waiting so long to order? This is going to cause us some issues down the road. And there are tons and tons more reports. But so I ask that you dig in there, look at these reports and see how they can help you. We really do like to be able to give you information that you can sort and you can quickly identify, okay, if I look at these top 10 items, most of my problem is gone. And so I invite you to dig in and see what items are really keeping your system from running as well as it could, keeping your inventories or your service level from being where they could.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks.
Questions? Any further questions on this? Come on, gotta have some.
Do a comment?
Yeah, Russell.
Is she didn't share the one that compares your FDU to your ADU and your effective daily usage? So for those planners that insist that they've got a decent forecast, it's a passive aggressive way to share. So I mean, what we often find is that folks want to use the FDU or something weighted heavily towards their FDU. But if you look at, okay, our inventory is not coming down, why is it? You know, oftentimes I find that you can run a chart that says, okay, so you selected as your effective daily usage for most of your materials, the forward usage. You can see how it'll track over time, you know, how the two averages are running. And then your ADU ultimately reflects the actual consumption over time. So that check, when that ADU stays well below the FDU, it's like, okay, can you meet us halfway? Can we do it? Can we do a historical average? So
Yeah.
Right.
We found this quite useful at Aptiv because the FDU, if you look, they were using an 8-week horizon for their daily usage calculations, right? If I go 8 weeks forward, my ADU 8 weeks from today ought to be what my FDU was 8 weeks ago, right? They ought to be in a pretty much the same vicinity. Fairly sizable gap, right? And the other one that we worked on was qualified demand versus the actual demand history. Now, this was interesting because the MRP cycles would not clean out all the backflush of demands. So they would linger in there for a couple of days. And, you know, we're turning inventory very high rates at Aptiv because it's a weekly cycle and all this stuff. But even a day or two of that excess past due demand was creating more orders that really weren't needed, right? And then the other thing that'll cause that excess qualified demand would be if you're over qualifying spikes, right? If you got your thresholds too low, it's going to be too sensitive, and you can build in a lot of very conservative bias into this thing if you're not careful, which then can be counterproductive to what you're trying to do on inventory turns.
Yeah, I'd say that of the problems that we had to clean up, that we were getting orders we didn't like and orders that the planners took issue with. This goes for Unilever as well. We always had it with our stuff.
Yeah.
Qualified demand, look at your qualified demand spikes, and then anything that's past due. Those are the things that are really damn your net flow equation.
Yeah. Net flow. Yeah. Yeah.
I go back to but yeah, the qualified demand is more often than not the reason for your bad order.
Yeah.
Because all the other components of the equation, right? Like your inventory is not wrong, right? So your qualified demand is probably.
One thing I wanted to clarify, I had a bit of a senior moment on the question about the amount of excess open supply. If you take your green zone, you can divide it into the yellow zone, right? If I have 1,000 units in my yellow zone because of the lead time and the ADU, but I have a green zone of 100, I would expect on average 10 open orders at any given point in time, right? Because that's kind of that ongoing conveyor of resupply that's coming in to support the buffer. And that ratio then can also be utilized just the way, same way you have an expected average inventory, expected amount of average open supply. And you can monitor that as a way of trying to understand, where's my problem? Is it more in over-ordering and oversupplying, or is it that we're just carrying too much stock on items, and see where the variance is coming from there.